Absolutely not. It's surprising. One of the reasons I've been writing and speaking across the country about what lobbying involves is to set the record straight, and because I believe that people really don't have a good understanding. You asked why. The public has a misperception about what the lobbying profession involves. I think there's a lot of reasons. First, they're understandably upset and mad, and they're mad about everything that doesn't work, and sometimes when you're mad, you don't see that clearly. Second is I don't think our profession does a particularly good job. There's some rotten apples that get a lot of attention, but also I think we could do more to stand up and explain and talk about what's really involved. So those are a couple of big reasons. Well, fundamentally, I think that just being an advocate and complying with the rules and putting the case forward for an interest that you're representing, whether it's a public interest or a private commercial interest, is an honorable thing. And that's the way our system of government has been set up. And you may agree or disagree with a particular interest that a lobbyist is representing, but they're all entitled to come to the table. And that's the way our country, because we're not homogenous, we're not vanilla. We're a varied country, different geographies, different interest groups, and everybody gets to compete for attention of the lawmakers and the rule makers. Inevitably, there's a reaction to put more restrictions on lobbyists. It's a little bit like invading Iraq when Afghanistan harbors the Al-Qaeda and Taliban. It's a little bit of a non sequitur, but that inevitably will happen, and there have already been calls for more restrictions on lobbyists. The problem is when you try to restrict lobbyists, you're really making the government less accountable and creating more of an advantage for the most powerful and moneyed, influenced entities. They have many arrows in their quiver to have an impact on government policy. And if you make it tougher for them to have lobbying, then they've got other resources. Often, though, it's the little guy and it's Main Street that have to rely on lobbying to be heard. That's a great question. And one of the reasons it's a great question is that the big hoo-ha over how bad lobbyist is and how we need to change everything is really, in my view, an argument over yesterday's headlines. It's an argument over ways things used to be done. So, for example, information is widely available. Access is widely available. Committee markups, which is where a committee meets and considers amendments and changes to pending legislation, or major pieces of legislation, or applications for stimulus funds. This is all available on the government website. Or you can watch a committee hearing on the web, on the committee website. So you don't need to have Washington Council charge you a lot of money for providing you that information. But what you do need is expert advice and advocacy and analysis. That's where the value comes from.